Okay, thank you guys. I think we're all cut up there. Okay, so let's talk about what the red pill is and what I view as the problems with red pill. So I view the red pill as kind of an offshoot or something that developed from maybe earlier MGTOW or manosphere types. So a lot of the complaints center around inequality before the courts and family law specifically benefiting women. I don't disagree there, but you mentioned yourself that they can be degenerate. And when I look at someone like the Fresh and Fit guys who do talk about, like, they encourage promiscuity among men, that's not something that I support.
Yeah, but again, this is a detailed problem with your worldview. So let me dive right into this as well. These are secularists, and these secularist men are trying to help secularist men. The Christians are supposed to be coming in with solutions to these issues, and what happens is, like you, they have actual contradictions inside of their worldview, so these guys don't want to listen to them. What you guys say is, oh, hey, just roll the dice, and hopefully you'll get lucky, and maybe you won't marry one of these horrible women. What is the actual Christian prescription? So then tell me, Lauren, what is the actual Christian prescription to hypergamy in society from women and mate selection? What is the actual solution that you have from a Christian ethic that you can give these guys that's better than what Fresh and Fit gives them?
I don't have a problem with hypergamy.
Yeah, that's not my question. My question is, if you believe in monogamy because you're a Christian, but women are not acting in a monogamous way inside society, which they're not, what is the prescription that you're going to give to men? There's not enough women to go around who are virtuous for the virtuous men. What prescription are you going to give to the secularists? Do you even have one? You don't have one, right?
Well, no, I think the solution is to do things like change family court, like absolutely change the law surrounding divorce. I think a lot of men, even if they are secularists, would feel better going into a marriage if they didn't think that there was such a good chance that they absolutely lose everything in the divorce. And I also think that you say that there's not enough good women to go around. I think that's true. And in my video talking about the women and the right, I believe a lot of this stems from a lack of leadership from men in the church. I think there should be a lot of churches, they prioritize gynocentrism, female sensibilities over actual male leadership. And I think that's a problem. And I think if we were to let the
church,
this
doesn't answer the question. What is the actual prescription that you can give to men right now who are facing down the barrel of marriage, right? Where you have a state contract in a secular way. These guys are speaking to secular men. You're the Christian who's trying to convert them. What's the actual prescription that you're going to give these guys when it comes to marriage? What is it, Lauren?
Well, I think you pointed out that any prescription when it comes to marriage, if you're talking to a secularist, should be to follow Christ, because anything less than that is not a marriage.
Oh, and they go, yeah, but I don't want to do that. What I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to, have sex with a bunch of hot chicks and then never tie myself down with the state. That makes a lot more sense. Can you actually tell me why that's illogical from a secular progressive state? I can't actually think of how it's illogical for a man who's a secularist to say, I don't want to get married in the current sphere. The women are not virtuous. And instead, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to have tons and tons of sex. And that's it. Why is that actually problematic from that stance? Doesn't it seem like it's good advice for Fresh and Fit?
If your problem with women is that too many of them have slept around, etc., then I don't think you need to be a Christian to recognize that by continuing to sleep with these women, you are exacerbating the problem. Unless you're
that would be contrary to hypergamy. Hypergamy is actually stating the opposite within the red pill thought process. They're actually stating the opposite, that most men cannot sleep with X amount of women. Most of them cannot. Most women can sleep with whatever guy they want. Most guys cannot sleep with whatever woman they want. So it would actually be the opposite within their sphere. So they're telling men, actually, you're probably not going to be able to do this thing. However, here's self-improvement you can do, which would improve your chances of mate selection and things like this. From a secular standpoint, how in the world could they possibly be wrong? What are you offering? This is the question. What are you offering from the Christian church, from the Christian perspective, to combat these ideas, Lauren? What are you actually showing them?
Well, once more, you talk about the fact that, well, they're offering self-improvement so that men can improve their chances for mate selection. I will maintain, if you are a man who believes that promiscuity amongst women, sleeping with men who they are not married to, is a problem, you cannot engage in that same behavior while complaining about the problem. You are exacerbating the problem.
Yeah, but most of those men are not exacerbating the problem. This is not a male problem. This would be a woman problem when it comes to hypergamy. If most of the women are sleeping with a select few men, how's that a man's issue? That would be a woman's issue. And again, you still have not answered the question from the church, from the Christian perspective. What would you do to solve that?
Well, I think what we need to do to solve that is, when it comes to things like, sex outside of wedlock, as a church, we have fault. Like, the Christian church has failed in enforcing those moral standards. I mean, and it's true. How many, if you think about like church singles groups, or even just general services, how many of them talk about something like sex within marriage specifically? It's not a popular concept. It's not something that I think a lot of church leaders, quote, think is a winning topic. But because of that, even amongst people within the church, like, that's a problem.
Okay. Well, here, I'll give you the solution, because that's a non-solution. That's just literally prattle. You didn't say anything. Here's the actual solution.
I'll let you continue. But
go ahead.
What I've said there is that the church should absolutely be pushing to enforce those moral standards, preaching those moral standards.
Which church?
Christian churches, like the church is the body of Christ.
Yeah, but the problem is that within Protestantism, you have so many different denominations, so many of them which embrace feminism, LGBTQ, this type of thing. They have no unified message. Only the traditional churches, Orthodoxy and Catholicism, do. That's it. That's why the Muslims have become so popular where they're at, when they're pushing traditional values. That's the reason why. So I can tell you how you can actually make a lifeline to these guys if you actually want to bring them over to your side. If you really want to understand how you can fix this problem, you fix the problem with a move to patriarchy. That's the thing red pillars will embrace, a move to patriarchal systems. That's what Christianity can offer to the secularists, which bring them over to our side, a move to patriarchy. Because absent patriarchy, what has happened?
Churches need to embrace that.
Yeah, but they have no ecclesiastical authority. Because there's no ecclesiology, they can't do it. Protestant churches can't do it. They don't have the necessary ecclesiology in order to move into a patriarchal system. They don't have any reference for marriage. They don't have any laws or bylaws regarding marriage. They have no laws or bylaws regarding anything, whereas the traditional churches do have that ecclesiastical authority. That's why the traditional Abrahamic religions do so well, and why Protestantism does not do so well. And so hang on, I'm almost done. When you're making the advocation for this, the reason that you have a pro-feminist stance without even knowing it is because if you want to solve the problem on the red pill side and the Christ pill side, the one unifier that you have is a patriarchal systems. They will agree with that, and you can move them out of that. But just telling them, oh no, just be monogamous, that doesn't do anything for them, because who are the women left? They get the leftovers to be monogamous with. That's what they get.
All right. Well, I mean, when it comes to things like divorce within the Catholic Church, at least if we're going with nominal Catholics, it is still high, unfortunately.
Depends on the country. That's one. Yeah, and there's influencers which happen inside of Western nations, especially due to feminism. In Orthodoxy, the rates are very, very, very low. Also, Orthodoxy offers the ecclesiastical authority and the requisite to get married outside of the state. It's not a requirement, because these are sacraments. These are messages which you can give to actual red pillars to move them over to Christ. What you can't tell them to do, though, is, hey, take the big risk and the big gamble, because Jesus would really like it if you did. That's insane messaging.
That's not my position, by the way, to take the risk and the gamble, to just roll the dice. I absolutely don't think that's a good idea for men to do. And I think that there are definitely things that you can do that would reduce your likelihood of getting divorced. I don't think you should just roll the dice. Absolutely not.
Well, then what is your prescription other than a move to patriarchy?
I don't think a move to patriarchy is not part of that answer. Again, I said that even in regard to the church. But I also think that there are certain mate selections that you can do that do have a statistical likelihood at reducing your chances of divorce, right? Socioeconomic status of married couples has an outcome. It affects your likeliness of divorce.
Yeah, but it also affects the outcome of you having children, because you have them later in life because of family planning. And so what ends up happening is it's the poor and the downtrodden and those who reject materialism who are going to inherit the earth because they're the only ones who are breeding. It's actually bad advice to tell people to wait until later in life to get married, because you're going to destroy the chance of them having more children.
I'm not telling people to wait later in life to get married, but I think there's sometimes the willingness to believe that there is one likelihood of divorce, and that it's a roll of the dice no matter what the circumstances are, which is patently not true. And there's a big differential, even if you look at between different races, of the likelihood of divorce. The black divorce rate, I think,
that's because different races embrace different types of ecclesiastical authority inside of their churches. Namely, some of them have none. And that's why when the church effectively had some sort of body to it inside of black communities, you did not see these divorce rates nearly as high, because they had a more traditional foundation for what it was that they were going for. That's all destroyed. But when you're talking about the entailment of what you just said, though, of, hey, your likelihood for divorce drastically is going to reduce if you have, these different socioeconomic statuses. An entailment of that is going to be that they wait till later to get married. That, in turn, is going to cause us to have less children, which exacerbates the birth rate crisis. These, again, not a great position.
Well, the thing is, when people look at the likelihood of divorce dropping, we're basically talking about IQ here, and bell curve talks about this. Your likelihood of getting divorced is greatly higher if your IQ is lower, and socioeconomic status is kind of like it represents that. And so, if you are a man, absolutely trying to find a woman who is not low IQ, therefore has better impulse control, it is going to reduce your likelihood of getting a divorce. Now, does that simultaneously mean that you have to wait until you're 30 to get married and maybe 35 to have kids? No, I think those are two different things.
The high IQ people are not having children.
Yeah, which is a problem, and I want them to have children.
Yeah, but if you want them to have children, then you have to embrace patriarchy, because we want the smart mothers to stay at home and raise their children. We don't want them in the workforce literally frying their brains on behalf of their boss. We want the really high IQ women. We want the really high IQ women at home raising children to make the next generation of high IQ children. Otherwise, they're wasted. They're wasted in the marketplace. Move to patriarchy is the only answer to this. That's the only way that this can actually be done in a structured way. You can't incentivize them with money. There's no way to incentivize people with money to have children. The poorest among us are the ones who have the children now. So financial incentives are not going to work for this.
I've long said the idea that the reason why women aren't having children is because of cost is ridiculous. And it's not just the poor in this country who have more children than the rich, but also if we look at a global scale, the places where there's the least economic development, they tend to have the most. It is absolutely a choice that people are making. Now, does that simultaneously mean that I don't think concerns over affordability are, we shouldn't talk about them? No, but I don't think that is the core issue of why
that's a materialist position. It's a materialist position. You having a family should not have anything to do with materialism. It should have to do with the relationship and the sacrament between yourself and Jesus Christ, in the submission of your wife to your patriarchal authority and your ability to raise children, even in meager settings. Some of the best people come out of the worst poverty situations. It's not a bar for having a family. The messaging that can come from Christianity only can cross this threshold and Rubicon with the red pill if we have an embrace of patriarchy. That's it. It's the only way. I still haven't actually heard any descriptors of the red pill that you disagree with. What are they?
Well, I told you it's the push for the promiscuity, because we also have an overlap with what seems to be the pickup artist mentality, where we have people like Fresh and Fit going on sugar baby sites, right, and sleeping with all of these women.
Yeah, the push towards promiscuity is something which I push back on more than most, but that's not red pill. Just because you're a pickup artist, think of the red pill as a data packet. Inside of the data packet is a ton of information. You can utilize it how you see fit. Can you utilize it for the purposes of nefarious manipulation? Yes. Can you also utilize it for the purposes of help building men up and men's advocacy? Yes. You can't lay at the feet of the red pill the fact that some pickup artists and some people push towards promiscuity. That's not a red pill ideology. Red pill is simply information. That's it. It's descriptive truths which are given out into the ethos, and you can do what you want with those descriptive truths. I've not actually ever heard, and I've been on Fresh and Fit, and I have tangled with Myron on this, and he has told me to my face, yes, it's degenerate behavior. Yes, promiscuity is bad. Yes, promiscuity should be rejected if we had a moral society. Andrew, what are Christians going to do to reach out in order to make sure we have a moral society again? In this case, when I ask you, right, you are telling the degens to get married, which is insane, right?
That's not my prescription to have a more moral society, is to just get married. That's absolutely not it.
It was it. I caught you in a contradiction on it already. That you're advocating as bad a sin as they are. What is the distinction between them saying go have sex unmarried with a bunch of people and you saying no, get married secularly, absent a sacrament? You're both advocating for the same exact thing, Lauren.
It's not the same exact thing. Even if we just look at the consequentialist, and again, I think you're right. Actually,
you're not a consequentialist. You're
marriage.
A Christian.
But if we look at the outcomes, you can't say that the outcome is the same where you're sleeping with one person for the rest of your life versus you're sleeping with all of these other people. That's actually not the same. It's not
wait.
In terms of the outcome.
But it's still degeneracy on both sides. If they're getting married absent a sacrament, right, they're still degenerates. And if they're promiscuous, they're still degenerates. You're both advocating for degeneracy. You're both just doing it in different ways. And that's why guys like me exist, to push back on these ideologies, because it's nuts. It's actually crazy.
Well, I think, again, I will say you're right about the civil marriage thing, and I will thank you for elucidating that for me. That's totally fine. But I think even if we look at purely from a secular standpoint, with the acknowledgement that a civil marriage is not a sacramental marriage, and therefore is sinful, if we look at the outcomes of things like promiscuity involving multiple partners, then we have children being born out of wedlock.
You still have them being born out of wedlock. Your prescription also would have children being born out of wedlock.
Yeah, but to multiple baby mamas and things like that, which is objectively worse.
Okay, so now you're consequentialist again. Now you're consequentialist again.
And if we look at the outcomes like poverty, think like abuse, there is a difference between a secular married couple versus just sleeping with a bunch of women. There's a difference.
Okay. So just to get this right, I get it. You're advocating for degeneracy light. Got it. Like, does that I don't know how that makes it better that you advocate for degeneracy light
I'm not
instead of tons of degeneracy
for that marriage in the first place, but I can still recognize that the outcomes are different and one is measurably worse than the other.
Yeah, but the outcomes, you're not a consequentialist. Christians don't follow consequentialism. While it's true we can look at outcomes, you're supposed to be following virtues and the teachings of Jesus Christ, not of what the consequences of your higher duties are. If you were a consequentialist and a Christian, that would be absent the Christian ethic and the Christian ethos, period. And it doesn't even follow with the logos. None of this follows, Lauren. None of it follows.
But so you're saying that these red pill men are secular, therefore we have to speak to them in terms of a secular language, what the pros and the cons are. There is still a secular argument to be made for why you should not be sleeping with a bunch of women, like one night stands and pickup artist style. There's still a secular argument to be made
you can make that.
Why that is worse.
You can make that secular argument, but here's the thing: it's not enough to destroy their worldview if you can't offer them one that's better. And what they hear is hypocrisy, and what they hear is nonsense. What they hear is you saying, hey, the best thing that you can do is get married, in spite of the fact that my values say that you're not even really married. That these are insane positions which are put together in order to attack the red pill who's just trying to give descriptive truths. I'm not saying that their prescriptions are great. That's where you get into some of the pickup artist stuff. Most of them don't make prescriptions, though. Rollo calls it a praxeology. It's not, but he calls it a praxeology. These different people have different names for it, but they're just trying to give descriptive claims for how the world actually works. And all I see is you beating the hell out of them and kissing the ass of former prostitutes like Nala, and kissing the ass of all of these women and saying, how dare you, Pearl Davis, how dare you, Andrew Wilson, say that you think that, oh, I don't know, maybe this chick who had sex with hundreds of men on film has done absolutely nothing to show the fruits or in any way really repent or show any remorse for this. How dare you not kiss their ass? Yeah, that's a losing message. It's a losing message.
I'm not saying that anyone needs to kiss Nala's ass. I'm just saying that as Christians, we cannot make a judgment as to whether or not she has been saved. And it is possible that she has been saved. That's my position on Nala.
That wasn't just your position. Your position in your video was also to attack people like Pearl Davis, who is the only one, was the only one out of you sea of harpies, that's my words, okay, who wasn't kissing this woman's ass. She was the only one who actually didn't get on her knees and kiss this prostitute's ass because she got dunked at heresychurch.com. The only one.
So it sounds like when you say that she just got dunked at heresychurch.com, do you believe that you don't believe that Nala has been saved? Do you believe it's possible that she has been?
Of course, I would not make a claim to the salvation, but what I would say is I would definitely not be attacking creators like Pearl Davis, who are pointing out that, hey, you Christians should not be running to embrace this. You Christians should not be running to say that, hey, this is necessarily even a good thing that she's doing the testimony roadshow and look how saved I am. That is the opposition of the Christian ethic. She was the only one in a whole sea of you women who came after her, who stood her ground and said no. That's respectable.
Specifically said that Jesus isn't going to save these hoes. I think Jesus can save some of them. I think he will save some of them.
Not save them from the consequence of their actions. That's what she means by that. Not that they can't find salvation through Jesus Christ, but that Jesus isn't going to save them from the consequences of their actions. They're not. You can't use Christianity.
You mean in a world like, because obviously if Jesus saves them, it is from the consequences of their actions, their sinfulness on a spiritual level. But you mean
I'm talking about in the world, yes,
dating.
yeah, in the world.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's her point.
That's not something I disagree with. Like the idea, and I've said this online. I've said this multiple times. Nala,
what she means is, I'll just frame it the best way I can. Jesus can save these hoes' soul. Okay, but men are not going to be able to save these hoes in the world, and women are not going to be able to save these hoes in the world. And it sure would be nice if some of them actually faced the consequences for their actions, were held to account without a "what about the Mendo" argument from commentators like you, Lauren.
What do you mean, what about the Mendo?
Because what about the Mendo? Every time that we get into these discussions, and we even in this discussion / debate that we're having right now, almost every single time we bring up the female promiscuity issue, you bring it right back to men. You call the men the hoe-makers. You call the men the people who are responsible. You did. You said the red pillars are exacerbating the same issue they rage against. The thing is interesting here is when you're talking about hypergamy, that would actually be in opposition to your point. That's point one. And then point two is that while there are hoe-makers inside of these red pill spaces, most of them are feminists. And most of the debates I do with these red pillars, I prove that they're feminists because they embrace the ethic of destroying patriarchy for the purpose of degeneracy. But it's not a men's problem here. This is a woman's problem.
I very much, I disagree that I don't think that the problem is also amongst women and the women's promiscuity. I've done who knows how many videos at this point talking about promiscuity specifically amongst women, including women who do OnlyFans. I very much believe that this is, I mean, women are the gatekeepers of sex historically. So
that's a red pill talking point.
Yeah, it's a correct talking point.
All of the descriptors are mostly correct. I still haven't actually heard what you've done is conflated red pill with pickup artists. I haven't actually heard a single criticism of the red pill.
So you seem to, when we talk about even like feminists or red pill, you're like, this is specifically what the, like, I guess what the most basic belief structure that each one of them holds. Therefore, anything absent that, that's not really feminism. That's not really red pill.
No, I'm not giving you a no true Scotsman fallacy. I can explain. That's you're trying to move into a no true Scotsman fallacy, and that's not what I'm saying.
No. That's not what I'm doing. Let me finish. Okay. So I'm taking the position of this is what the movements exist as. Like the feminist movement. This is what the feminist movement represents. These are what feminists argue for. This is what the red pill movement represents. These are what, and again, like I specifically will talk about people like Pearl Davis because I will fully acknowledge that I don't follow people like Rollo Tomasi, or I'm sure there's other ones who are part of it that I don't follow. Like this is what red pill as a movement has brought.
What has it brought?
Well, I think if we're talking about the red pill movement, there's absolutely the idea and that male promiscuity should be excused or is not as bad as female promiscuity.
And what is your evidence for this?
This is something, well, I'm talking specifically about people like Pearl Davis, like Myron.
No, Pearl Davis nor Myron say this. Here's what they say. They give a descriptor. This is the problem, right? You don't know what you're talking about on these issues. The descriptor, I'm going to tell you the descriptor.
That it's not the same when a man
cheats. It's not, and here's why.
The
descriptor here is true. Here's the descriptor. The descriptor is that promiscuity in society is not punished by women towards men because of hypergamy. However, it is punished by men towards women, meaning the value set due to our ontology, which is different, right? Women seem to not be as upset by male promiscuity as men get by female promiscuity. This is objectively true. We have all of the data you could possibly imagine proving that this is true. Women seem to not care so much. Now, this could have something to do with the penetrative act, because if you look at homosexuality, for instance, both sides seem to be they have a disgust reaction to this. It could be due to the penetrative nature. I'm not exactly sure why this exists as a descriptive truth, but it is descriptively true. That is their point. Their point is not whether or not this behavior is good for men. Most red pillers say that promiscuity for men is not a good thing, in fact. But that doesn't mean that the descriptive truth that is viewed differently between the sexes isn't true, because it is. It most definitely is.
But then, so you come along and say Pearl actually means XYZ. Let me explain it. This is not what Pearl is saying when she is online, when she is tweeting out. This is a very different thing. And this is where I think Pearl shoots herself in the foot a lot, because I don't know if she's engagement farming to try to say things in the most provocative way possible. But she does not say that men and women, or she does not just say that, oh, cheating is viewed differently from men as it is women, therefore whatever. She will actually say that it's not a big deal if a man cheats.
What happens, and Pearl also clarified this, and I even have the tweets of her clarifying this. She's clarified it a million times. But what happens is, because you have a character limitation, what people do, and it's a leftist game, they take what is said out of context. They portray that as a position of Pearl Davis, even though she's clarified it 100 times. That promiscuity for men is not good. However, it is a more understandable in society because they're not punished for it by women the same way women are punished for it by men. This operates under incentives. That's showing you an incentive difference.
But I think she's also, she's leading her audience down the wrong path, because you'll have men like Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles who argue for marriage very strongly.
Yeah, that's right. They argue for secular marriage and have the same contradiction you do, which is why the red pill doesn't take them seriously.
Can I finish?
Yeah, go ahead.
She'll look at someone like Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles and say well, your marriages aren't representative because you are the X%, so you can't translate your experience universally toward men. It's okay, but simultaneously she will just say it's not as big of a deal for men to cheat. If you look at a lot of women in their relationships with their husbands, with their boyfriends, they will absolutely think that it is a big deal if they cheat. Now, if you're saying the top 1%, their wives who might be trophy wives are not going to think it as big of a deal. They're going to turn the other cheek. Well, Pearl is doing the exact same thing that she accuses Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles of doing, trying to apply the standards for the top 0.1% to the average male in the dating pool or in the marriage pool.
This is insane. This is insane framing, because you want to point out hypocrisy where it doesn't exist. Matt Walsh and the Tradcons suffer from the exact same contradiction that you do, which is to give a green light to secularists to get married, which is degenerate in and of its own nature, is a degenerate, non-sacramental act. It is not a Catholic act. It is not an Orthodox act for secularists to engage in this kind of degeneracy in society and then wrap it up in a bow with a state contract. That's insanity. Not only that, but none of these guys actually are willing to debate the issues with any of these people. Rollo Tomasi, Myron, all of these different red pillars have done a call out to debate with the Daily Wire people on this particular issue, because they're hang on, because they're straw man so heavily, and none of them will do it. Not one. So that tells me, right, at least you could, I have some respect for you, at least, Lauren, because you showed up to do the debate. Kudos to you. Great. At least we had it. These guys won't even show up to a debate We had it all set up with Myron Gaines. We had it all set up on whatever. We've had it set up a dozen times to take these guys to task on their absurd criticisms of what is considered the red pill, and they refuse to even show up. Instead, they go into a smoke-filled cigar room and film each other kissing each other's asses and talking about how great it is that they want secular people to get married. Oh, wow. We've really won the culture war now, Lauren.
Well, I mean, to be fair to them, like, I'm not a Daily Wire employee. I'm not a fan of the Daily Wire as a whole. I like Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles, though. But Andrew Klavan and Michael Knowles have both sat down with Pearl specifically. They have had those conversations. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have further ones.
Yeah, Klavan got destroyed by Pearl Davis, who's not even a good debater. Yeah, I can't even tell you how badly it would go for the Daily Wire guys to have guys like me who I'm not even a red pillar. I just don't straw man their position. Same thing, Rollo Tomasi, Myron Gaines, all of these guys, they would absolutely obliterate them, and that's why they hide, because they don't have prescriptions to these problems. And that's a big problem if you're out there advocating for Christianity, and what ends up happening is we all look stupid, we get pummeled, these guys in their spaces laugh at us, and I don't blame them.
Do you think that there exists a way for, I guess, there are secular adjustments to marriage that the red pill community would look at and think, you know, you're right, this does change my view of marriage and whether I should get married?
Repeat the question. I want to make sure I get it correct.
So do you think that there are secular changes to civil marriages? And again, I'll say it all the day long. You are right about secular marriages. I have no problems, like, you know, W for you. You're right. But do you think that there are secular changes that would make secular men more likely to get married? Because if you're saying,
but I don't want them to. I want them to get a sacramental marriage. Why would I try to move society towards degeneracy, to enabling degeneracy? Why would I do that? The truth is written on your heart. It is true that men and women are inclined to become married, but absent the sacrament, right? They're not living in a married lifestyle at all. They just have some bizarre state contract. It's totally meaningless. Why would I move heaven and earth and all of society to reform all of these laws on behalf of these men if they're not even going to go through with a sacrament, have an ecclesiastical authority which can govern their marriage? You're setting them up for failure. Absent that ground-based community, which you only get from the church. You can only get community building from the church. The reason most of these marriages actually fail, and Sexton he's a divorce lawyer. He's very popular all over the internet. Great guy. We've gone rounds and rounds about this. But one of the big keys, and if you read his book, you'll find this out, absent the groundswell community, there's nothing which keeps these marriages together. There's no shame. There's nothing to appeal to. It's just you and her, and that's it. And all of the degeneracy of the world. Why would I move heaven and earth and try to do everything that I could to promote that? I don't want to promote that. I want to move these people out of that and into sacramental marriage so that hopefully, not even hopefully, they will, based on what you and I have already discussed, which is that the more religious you are, the less likely you are to get divorced. That's going to require sacramental marriage. That's the way forward, but that requires patriarchy. I'm not going to move laws around and advocate to move these laws around so that secularists can engage in more degeneracy. That's insane.
Okay. And again, the civil marriage thing, I think you're right there. That's something that you've kind of blown my mind on. I don't have a problem admitting that. I think from the Daily Wire perspective, they view it as pragmatically easier to encourage people who are secular to get married, have children within that state wedlock than it is to convert them. And I think,
we could say abortion is more pragmatic because you can get rid of the undesirables in society too if you wanted to. We're not interested as Christians in pragmatic solutions. We're interested as Christians in sacramental solutions and bringing people into the church of Jesus Christ, the body of Jesus Christ. In order to do that, we need to have a message which can compete with the common sense messaging of the red pill, and they ain't got it. And that's why they get destroyed. And that's why guys like me, the few of us which exist, can go out there and completely dismember both sides of the argument because we actually understand what the arguments are. These are not evil men. They're trying to get by inside of this completely degenerate world. They're looking for a solution like this. Myron would be the first to engage in ecclesiastical authority when it came to marriage and recommend that men go that route. and they know that they're immoral, absent Jesus Christ and God. But if you can't offer them a superior message, the red pill is going to beat the holy tar out of you, and that's exactly what they're doing.